Hey everyone, sorry about that. I hit the wrong buttons. What can I say? Anyway, hey, good evening, everyone. It is time for late night coffee talk. It is going to be a good one. I can already see lots of questions popping up in the chat, and we've gotten a lot via email. You guys can hear me all right? There was a little technical snafu before this whole thing jumped off, and I just want to make sure that I can be heard. So, sound off in the comments. All right, so let's get down to the brass tacks. We have got, I think, a whole passel of great questions tonight, and I will tell you that some of them have been answered before, but I am going to tackle them or at least point people there. And then some are questions that I know are on the minds of everyone, and I know that because I just got back off the road. We've been here maybe back home for a couple of hours. We were in Lufkin last night speaking to the Angelina County GOP, and I actually had an opportunity to be in Yoakum today to speak to a group of about 177 high school seniors from 3 different counties. We can talk about that more later. But before we jump off into all this, let me just, for those of you who don't know what's happening here, I'm Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist movement, and this is Late Night Coffee Talk. This is that time where I take a break from what I'm working on. I go fire up the microphone and the camera, and I answer your questions. Completely unscripted. I mean, the only questions I know are the ones ahead of time are the ones that came in via email. But you can always drop your questions in the chat, right? So if you're watching on YouTube, you can go drop your questions in chat. And of course, say hi to everyone while you're there. Please be polite, right? But also while you're there, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. That really, really, really helps us more than you could possibly imagine. If you're watching on Facebook, either of the Facebook pages, you can always drop your question in the comments on the video. And while you're there, be sure to like and share, of course. And then if you're watching on X, which has been for the last several been the best performing platform for this particular live stream, be sure to do all the things that you do over there with the repost and be sure to give it the like and all those things, right? But also we can take your questions there as well. So be sure to drop all of those in the chat. Kara is that direction, and she's making sure that your questions don't get lost in the chat. She gets them thrown into the queue so I can try to answer them. I will try to answer them as best I can in the order in which they come in, given the time that's allotted, right? If it's a new and unique question, it kind of drops up to the top of the list or bubbles up to the top of the list. But if it is something that I've answered before, look, I'm going to direct you to where you can find an answer to that. So you guys have to forgive me. Man, it's pollen traveling from place to place. It's just, it's driving me nuts. Wow. So anyway, back to where I was before I start taking questions. So Angelina County GOP last night, great crowd, and I want a big special thank you to everyone that was there. I mean, the place was packed to the rafters with T&M people that are also members of the Angelina County GOP. We had a lot of Texas First pledge signers there. Not only did we have the county chairman, who is a recent pledge signer, but we had the vice chair of the state Republican Party, who is a pledge signer. We had both SREC members from Senate District 3 that are pledge signers, and numerous precinct chairs that are part of the county party there that are pledge signers. So it was definitely a friendly crowd. And, what was on everyone's minds was, okay, what does this election mean, right? What does this mean for what we're doing? Now, I will tell you, interestingly enough, not a single person that I talked to at that event, right? Not a single one said that this was the end of pursuing Texas independence. In fact, they had one heck of a sense of urgency that we need to make hay while the sun shines, right? And I've already seen some questions about this, and so I'm going to get into this a little bit later. But I saw an enthusiasm and an energy for the TNM's mission that frankly I think for a lot of folks just was really diminished moving into the election, because I can't count the number of people that I talked to that thought about that it was going to be the most catastrophic election, that we were headed into uncharted territory, and that we just didn't have enough time to get our job done. I mean, that's just kind of the attitude that they got, that I saw people have. But anyway, this crowd in Lufkin was just amazing, and so I want to just give a big thank you for the invitation. They invited me before the election, and they're ready to rock and roll, man. They understand that now is the time for Texas to make its strides towards independence, and I'll let you in on this secret too. I think that they probably had a little bit of an edge on answering that question themselves, because it was only a month ago that we were there or so for the TEXIT blueprint, right? It's that seminar that we've done twice. We did it in Greenville, we did it in Lufkin, to help people understand what TEXIT is and what TEXIT is not. And I'll even throw the graphics on the screen when I get to it. But anyway, so we immediately left there and had to drive from Lufkin down to Shiner, which is where we had to stay, because I had to be in Yoakum this morning, because the Republican women of the Yoakum area, one of the friendliest groups of people to us, they have been so kind, invited me the last time I was there to speak. They booked, like, I mean, I want to say this was almost a year in advance, right, for me to come and speak to these kids. And what they do is every year they hold a contest, basically a scholarship contest, for high school seniors in government classes from the three counties that they represent. So that would be Lavaca, DeWitt, and Gonzales counties. And they write an essay on a specific topic related to the U.S. Constitution. And so this time they picked the 10th Amendment. And so they know, a lot of our argument, a lot of what we talk about in relation to Texas independence and our right to be independent, and how we're going to exercise that right, we refer to the 10th Amendment a lot. So they said, hey, we'd love for you to come address these high school seniors. And so I got to give a 25-minute lesson on what the construction of the Union really is, what the 10th Amendment means to that, what is and what is not in Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution, but more importantly, what Article 1, Section 1 and Section 2 say of the Texas Constitution. And it was just a phenomenal opportunity to be able to go in there and not only hear some of their statements, right? The winner, the big money winner, $1,300 scholarship, wrote specifically about the 10th. They all had to write about the 10th Amendment, but wrote about really what I heard was a more a better. Let me just say it this way. I think his essay better articulated an understanding of the 10th Amendment and the fundamental construction of the Union than what I've heard from many, if not most, elected officials in Texas. And it was impressive. So it was just a phenomenal day. So as soon as that was done, we had to, do all those things, and then we burned back here for this, and I'm here to answer your questions. So that being said, let's tuck into these questions. Let's do this. Emailers. Oh, by the way, if you have questions, you'll see it right there at the bottom of the screen. You can email them. If you don't want to drop them in chat, you can email them to coffeetalk@etnm.org. Okay. Here's a question from an email. Chris says, which is more effective? Fire the entrenched FEMA employees that politicize the delivery of disaster assistance, or fire the federal government? Well, As someone who has been the recipient of FEMA mismanagement in the past, living right down here on the coast, I can tell you with 100% certainty the most effective means is to fire the federal government in its entirety, because FEMA is about as worthless as you could possibly get. Okay, John wants to know this. He says, Daniel, I recall some discussion of return to Waco for TEXITCon 2024 sometime in early December. Is this still the plan? Some of us need to get our travel budget and plans in order, and others need to clear vacation time. Yeah, and look, I'm going to just apologize to all of you. Updates have been slow to come to us, but there has been a situation with the venue. And so the Waco Convention Center, there was a portion of it we had reserved, a big section of it. I think the entire facility, they came back and said, look, we're going to carve this part of it out for somebody else. Like, this ain't going to work for us. So there's been some kerfuffle with the venue. And so here's what it looks like, right? This is preliminary. So we will not be having TEXITCon next month. I mean, there's just no way with all of the venue issues that were going on. However, I will tell you that I was on a call Monday where we talked about this very thing. And we're looking at a couple of different things. Number one, doing a smaller conference early in the year, but also doing some additional events, perhaps regionally, sort of at that scale, not, that scale of the blueprint, but not just me talking about the TEXIT blueprint, but do something smaller scale regionally. Okay. So it's in the works. We're still trying to figure out the implications of all of this with the venue, but we will keep you posted as soon as we know anything. Okay. So I appreciate that. Okay. Let's take, okay. So I did 2 from email. So, man, you guys are asking around a lot of the same questions. Okay. Frank says, will a video of Daniel speaking in Lufkin at Fairview Baptist Church be uploaded to YouTube? I don't know that anyone rolled video, but we will be posting the transcript of my speech. I had prepared remarks, and there will be the transcript. Actually, the transcript from last night and today will be posted to the website. I think they're due to be posted tonight at some point. So anyway, yeah, no, I don't know that anyone shot video. It's just the way that it works. Sorry about that, Frank. But you'll at least get to read. And right now, you can just imagine what it would be in my voice. Okay. Okay. Serenity Craft, this is from YouTube, says, does the Texas Stock Exchange increase the chances of TEXIT? Look, the chances of TEXIT are 100% because TEXIT is happening right now. Okay, so let's just take that off the table. But really and truly, the question is, does it help us advance Texas toward independence? And the answer is absolutely yes. It's, people, we can have debates about the players behind the Texas Stock Exchange and maybe what their motivations were. But let's look at the end result. Okay. The end result is that you're going to see a tremendous shift of capital moving into Texas, which is only going to take our economy sky high. And, you're already seeing all these Fortune 500 companies that are moving to Texas. There have been some interesting polling about that showed that the vast majority of the ingress shifted more conservative than liberal, which kind of shattered a bit of a narrative that was going on. But from an economic independence standpoint, it sets us up quite nicely for independence. It also provides one heck of a bargaining chip in post-referendum negotiations. There are a lot of benefits to it, and probably more than I can go into tonight. But here's what I'll do. I will promise you this: within the next week, I will post on the TNM news site at news.tnm.me. I'll do a commentary where I go into all of the major impacts on TEXIT and specifically how it moves us closer toward Texas being a self-governing independent nation? So, great question. Okay, so let me tell you what I'm going to do. A lot of these are around sort of the same kind of issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out some of these, and then I'm just going to address them all in one batch. I hope that's okay. Lou, excuse me, buddy. It's the deal. I just saw the signature line. Buddy asked, does the presidential election set us back, or does it give us some breathing room to get TEXIT on the ballot? He says, I was worried about a false hope that we could patch up the Titanic with Trump's election, but now I wonder if this doesn't work in our favor. Okay. And then John asked, he says, regarding the Trump win, I saw a number of people who claimed that their support of TEXIT was entirely contingent on whether or not Trump won. I'm concerned that a lot of people are just going to go, we're back, baby, USA, and say TEXIT isn't necessary now because their guy won, and is just going to magically fix everything. I know the TNM thrived during Trump's first term, but I only joined the TNM in 2021, so I want to hear your perspective on this. So those came in via email. And now let's very, very similar. Michael asked, now that Trump has won the election, what advice would you give to those that are now dealing with the complacency of the normalcy crowd? And then, of course, Let's Talk Politics says, hello, do you think it would be easier to achieve independence under Trump than it would have if Harris won? Okay, so that's going to be, and very similar, you think Texas independence is easier under Republicans or Democrats. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take these all as a bundle, okay, because it really is important, I think, to unpack these all together, because they a lot of the discussion, a lot of the commentary, and it's what I addressed in Lufkin to a certain extent. So just a little background, right? So let's just take this from an outsider's perspective. Okay, there are people that really don't know anything about us, particularly in the media, right? That look at what we're doing and have a very unusual perception about what it is. They think it's one thing when in fact it's not that. And a lot of the perception that they have is that TEXIT is a Republican knee-jerk reaction to Democrat federal officials, right? So whether it's Congress, the Obama administration or the Biden administration, they think that it is a reaction. Okay, so you go back to 2016. Okay, so by 2016, we had already been around for 11 years. Okay, understand the TNM was founded in 2005 when George W. Bush was president, or as we refer to him, Baby Bush, when he was president, right? So we had a period of growth while he was still president, getting our legs up underneath us, talking to people. But it was actually pretty easy, right? And in retrospect, everybody says, well, Bush was a neocon. He was a war hawk. He was, people that are Republicans now that are probably the hardcore Republicans don't have a lot of respect for Bush or the Bush presidency. I understand that perspective. But understand that the TNM was not founded because George Bush was president or that somebody else that was a Democrat might come in. It was all about Texas would be better off as a self-governing independent nation. That's what it was. Okay. And so, when we were founded, we were very clear about our mission. And I found that I had an old slide loaded in here where I had to remind some people about this before. But if you didn't know what our mission is, here it is. And it's been our mission since day one, right? So you go all the way back to almost this time in 2005. Man, it's hard to believe this is going to be like next week is our 19th anniversary. Amazing. But anyway, our mission is clear. It's to secure and protect the political, cultural, and economic independence of the nation of Texas. and to restore and protect a constitutional republic and the inherent rights of the people of Texas. That is our stated mission. Okay. Now, this is why for the longest time, I mean, and it took a while to get there, but I bristle when people talk about that our goal is secession or that our goal is TEXIT. I am not one of those people who subscribe to the theory that the journey is the destination. And you know, that is, to me, some people may say, well, that's a distinction without a difference. And I would say, then you need to pay closer attention, right? And it goes down to what I talked about in the TEXIT blueprint. And if you go back a few coffee talks back, I actually talked about this, right? You know, this is what people think TEXIT is. They think it's Texas exiting, and that's TEXIT. And I understand it's a portmanteau, it's a mashup word. I understand that. And it becomes shorthand for this idea of Texas withdrawing from the Union. But understand that the withdrawal is not the goal, right? And I think that's an important distinction to make, because you could withdraw from the Union and still not be independent. You could be technically withdrawn but not be independent. And if you want to know a real modern example of that, look at the fact that after the people in the UK voted to Brexit, and they had all of the Remainers digging their heels in and setting up roadblocks and objections, to a certain extent, they are still not fully independent of the European Union, right? I mean, they invoked Article 50 of the treaty. They went through the process, but they still have these entanglements that have meant that a lot of their policy is still being dictated to a certain extent out of Brussels. Okay. So you can be withdrawn from a union, or, you know, if you're a piece of an existing nation state, you could secede. There's a difference there too. You could, but still not be independent. If you don't have full control over your political, your cultural, and your economic life, then you are not fully independent, right? You are dependent on some other institution. So, you know, people who they can say that it's a distinction without a difference, but I see them as two very different situations, two very different scenarios, right? So that's what they think. They think that what we're about, I got called the TEXIT guy yesterday, right? You're the TEXIT guy. Okay, well, that's fine. Look, I'll take it. If it's shorthand, I prefer that over the balding fat guy with getting poor by the day eyesight. Right. I mean, I'll take TEXIT guy. I'm okay with that if it's shorthand and it helps them remember that we're out here doing what we're doing. But to ascribe the term TEXIT as our goal, really, I think, betrays the holistic nature of our mission, which we've been very clear about. I mean, this mission is about as holistic as it gets. The goal, ultimately, if you read this, is the political, cultural, and economic independence of the nation of Texas. Now, how does TEXIT factor into that? Well, we can't be politically, culturally, and economically independent if we are a state in the Union, okay? And so what the process is, and this is what it gets down to, okay? What TEXIT really is that process that takes the people of Texas from where they are to the point of being politically, culturally, economically independent and self-governing. TEXIT is the process. It's not the act. The referendum isn't TEXIT. The referendum is part of the TEXIT process. So as you move, you say, okay, well, TEXIT is withdrawal. That is, in fact, part of the process, but it's even more than just withdrawing. It's the assertion of your political, your cultural, and your economic independence. And so, you know, what happens is people get really enamored with the TEXIT thing. I tell people all the time, the TEXIT issue, right? The TEXIT as a term is the sexy topic that everyone loves to talk about, right? Because that's where they have reduced this down to in their minds oftentimes. But that's just one aspect, right? That is the TEXIT referendum, the Texas Independence Referendum Act, and having the referendum and getting and winning that vote is one step in the process. And you guys have heard all this from me before, right? But let me just bring it all together. We're going to do everything we have to do to advance Texas toward independence. The biggest thing that can be done along that road is for Texans to have a referendum and vote up or down and answer the question, should the state of Texas reassert its status as an independent nation? But I want to be very clear with everyone, because sometimes people miss this, and I don't understand why. Just because we have that expression of political will from the people of Texas doesn't mean we're immediately independent. You're not, doesn't mean that you're immediately a self-governing independent nation. Right. And I've talked about what are the 4 things that have to be done after an affirmative vote on the referendum. Well, we have to go and as a people, through our existing institutions, make constitutional changes, statutory changes. We have to execute international covenants, treaties, and agreements. And finally, we have to deal with the negotiated issues with the United States to affect our full withdrawal. And in that time, the 4th part of that, the negotiated issues, that's the withdrawal. But those other 3 that people have a tendency to skim over, that is us asserting our independence. Now, prior to that referendum vote, there are things that we can do to move Texas closer toward independence. And you will have heard me, if you've heard me talk about this before, I talk about the gap between where we are and where we need to be. Let me show the graphic again. The TEXIT process right there. For the slide presentation that I do for Blueprint, I actually have one where it's us holding a flag, and there's a gap that we've got to get over, right, to become politically, culturally, and economically independent, self-governing, right? But the important thing to understand here is the gap. Just so you understand, the gap between where we are and where we need to be is not that wide already, right? We're already much tighter. And I know any of you who have listened to me for any length of time, seen things I've written, I've talked about this. The gap is not as far as people think. They think that, well, you got to start over with a clean slate, and that's not the case at all. You take the constitutional issues as an example. We have a constitution. We have a governing document. What would we need to do? We would need to amend it, right? We don't have to have a constitutional convention. We don't have to do all. You can literally amend the document we have, change the name from State of Texas to Republic of Texas, change the name of the offices from governor to president, on and on. I've talked about that. When we talk about the currency, there are plenty of deep dive analysis articles that are over on the TNM news site right now that detail some of these things, like what's going to happen. How do we deal with the military base issue? What about the currency issue? Here's how we deal with that. Tons of in-depth analysis, and more being added every single solitary week that deal with these particular issues. So the gap is not that great. But the fact of the matter is that anything we can do this side of a referendum to close that gap, to disentangle ourselves from the federal system and move us closer, that means that when Texans, in fact, do go to the polls and do vote on this issue, excuse me, and do answer in the affirmative, it means that we have a lot less work to do. It's the difference between jumping over a ditch or jumping over a crack in the sidewalk. Okay. So it's an important thing to understand if we're going to start tackling this question. Okay. Right now, as it stands, we have an unprecedented opportunity to put the feet to the pedal and put the pedal all the way to the floor to advance Texas toward this issue. I am over the moon that so many people are excited and hopeful that the election of one person that will, in January, potentially move into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I am excited for you. But what I also am is I am a realist. I saw what happened in 2016 when you had all that same sort of hope, and we saw what happened when you go up against that entrenched establishment, that those 2.5 million unelected federal bureaucrats. And people can say all along, they say, well, he's got this big team around him. I get it. Look, I'm there. You know, I don't, for me and for the TNM, I don't ever see a relationship, a long-term relationship between Texas and the federal government. The goal will always be independence. The best people to govern Texas are Texans, and we cannot do that in the context of being a member of the union. Okay, it just can't happen. It's not possible. But I can understand why some want to hold out hope and say, look, he could probably fix some of these things, and more power to him. I would love it. Look, if they abolish the income tax, I'm okay with that, right? Or they go in and do some of the things they said they're going to do. Those are great policy positions to take. But do you have the personnel? Do you have the political capital? Do you have all those things? That remains to be seen. And you have to remember, as much as they fought him in 2016, they're going to fight doubly hard right now. I mean, you have to understand that the opposition to all of those changes at the federal level that wanted to keep power consolidated in Washington, D.C., they didn't just go to sleep. I mean, they showed you some, crazy-haired people on TikTok making some cry videos, but that's a fraction. That is a minute, tiny fraction of the opposition. The real opposition doesn't get on TikTok and doesn't whine and doesn't cry. They go out, they raise money, right? They go out there and they start recruiting voters. They let loose their machinations behind the scenes, and what happens is all of a sudden they get enough political capital, enough momentum, whatever it is, to obstruct every single thing that would be a meaningful change. And I'm afraid that many people are going to find out. They're going to wake up tomorrow and they're going to find out, or in the next couple of weeks, couple of months, what we've said all along, which is the federal government and the federal system are immune to reform and repeal. They're just not. So the upside for us is that had that election gone a different way last week, it would have been like drinking out of a fire hose, right? We would have to be. I mean, there would be absolutely no question that there would be. The legislation is going to get filed. We're going to get the vote. They would probably do it quicker rather than later. And then next thing you know, I mean, we would be fully in the thick of it. But with the difference that we would be going up against a potentially hostile federal regime, right? Who would do everything they could to obstruct and everything else. So, where we are. So to try to bundle all of these things together, all of these questions about where we're headed, we're doing exactly what we did the day before the election. We're doing all of the same things. Everything that was on the table for us before last Tuesday is still on the table, and we're still doing them, right? We just had the pre-filing window open for legislation yesterday. And we're already, I think, over 1,200 bills in the House. I think 300 or 400 in the Senate. I mean, we're going into a legislative session, and we're going in a position that we've never been in before. We've got more Texas First pledge signers in the Texas legislature than ever before. And they're coming off the heels of a mandate election where the opposition tried to attack them for signing a pledge to put Texas and Texans first and to support legislation that would give Texans a vote on independence. They tried to torpedo every one of those people. They tried to come in and destroy them. They tried to attack them with it. And when they realized that it wasn't an attack vector, they abandoned it, thereby proving once and for all that the TEXIT issue, and in particular the independence issue, is not the toxic third rail, the lethal third rail that the opposition likes to paint it. And in fact, every conversation I had, and I alluded to this before, I told you I'd get to it. Every conversation that I had with anyone, whether it was at the Angelina County GOP, last night, or even with the Yoakum Republican women. They wanted to know, look, how can we turn up the gas on this issue right now? What can we do to help? You know, what is it we need to be doing right now? Yes, they were excited coming off the heels of that, but they also understand that we're literally 10 minutes away at any given moment from a constitutional crisis, right? They understand the reality that the opposition is not going to go to sleep and roll over and basically write Donald Trump a blank check to do whatever he wants to do, that they're going to delay, they're going to obstruct, they're going to do everything they can. They will color outside the lines if necessary to obstruct anything that represents or that resembles meaningful reform at the federal level. That's what they're going to do. And they also understand that he won't be president forever. This is not the inauguration of a dynasty where it's just going to be these policies on and on and on and on and on. They understand that the pendulum eventually swings back, and when it swings back hard. And so they're all like, we got to go now, right? Now is that, because you've got probably the friendliest administration at the federal level on this issue that you're going to get, right? So what does that look like? Well, we got a legislative session right now. We need to advance any and all legislation that not only guarantees the people of Texas a vote on the TEXIT issue, but expands Texas independence along the political, cultural, and economic independence fronts. We need to support election integrity legislation so that when TEXIT does go on the ballot, we need to make sure that we don't have to go out there and try to win beyond the margin of theft. We just have to be able to win, right? We have to do things that secure Texas as a nation right now, which means expanding our state guard and having a true Texas border force. This means, from an economic perspective, this means doing things that are effectively economic nationalism for Texas, right? Like the currency bills, right? The digital currency based on the deposits in the bullion depository and right to use for money. And I mean, there's all these things across the entire spectrum. There's a piece of legislation that I saw get filed yesterday that was floated last session, but because of all the nonsense, didn't get to see the light of day. We need to decouple state elections from the federal elections. We need to make that separation happen, and we can do it across all these fronts. And we have to continue to work to give Texans a vote on this issue. And we keep pushing forward because, look, when I say that we're 10 minutes away from a constitutional crisis, remember, they already tried to assassinate the guy twice, and they busted up a third one, supposedly pushed by the Iranians and organized crime. So, there's a chance that Donald Trump doesn't even get to take office on January the 20th. So my message to those of you out there that are running into this situation with folks, understand that if they signed up as if they came on board and say, well, I support TEXIT because I don't like President Peepaw, you're not going to be able to do much about that. Have some conversations with them, take them through, and help them understand the reality of the situation. But look, when push comes to shove, it's not whether or not you support TEXIT, it's whether or not you support Texas being independent. It's whether or not you support Texans being the ones to govern Texas, right? And not 2.5 million unelected federal bureaucrats. I don't care if Elon Musk drops it from 440 agencies to 99 and say drops it down to 1 million unelected bureaucrats. They don't need to be governing Texas. And so that's really what it's about. It's about political, cultural, and economic independence. That is what our mission is. And that's what we're going to continue to pursue. And we're looking for people that believe in that vision of an independent Texas too. And look, here's the bottom line. If you're worried about some of those people going dormant, understand that that the next bad thing that happens on the federal side, they'll be right back. Right. So, I mean, it's like they may not help you now, but they probably won't help you then, but at least they'll vote for it when it goes on a ballot. Right. So, I can't say it any plainer than that. Right. Is that this idea that they may not support TEXIT, because all of the, it's going to be rainbows and unicorns and, I'm going to eat a can of pinto beans and, later it's going to smell like roses. It's just ridiculous, right? I get it. And I appreciate it. After dealing with 4 years of President Peepaw and all that oppression and everything else, I can understand that this must feel quite liberating for some people. But I'm going to tell you, for me, I just looked at it and said, okay, one of two things was going to happen when I woke up the next morning. And all of those roads led to independence, right? I mean, it's just, we're going to do this. We're going to do this the soft way or the hard way. It's kind of what it looked like to me. So I would tell you right now that honestly, the work, the task at hand is more urgent than ever. Favorable legislation, a favorable, perhaps, legislature. We still have to see how the leadership election goes, right? But favorable legislator, at least one heck of a beachhead. More Texas First Pledge signers than ever. The organization is larger than it's ever been. We've got, legislation like crazy that we're working. We're organizing right now in 50 out of the 254 counties and making tremendous progress. We're been all over the news. I mean, we're still moving. If anybody says that, well, I'm not doing well, they just get left behind. We want them here. We want them to help with this. We want people to help shoulder the burden and sharing the success. But I understand that just not all people are wired that way, and that's okay. I want people that are wired like the ones that won the original Texas Revolution, not the 60% who deserted the Texian army. So hopefully, my friends, I answered all of those. I think I got them. But look, I appreciate all of those questions. I was able to bundle them together and answer them all in one big bundle, and that makes me very happy. Okay, so this comes from Timothy. He says the United States has the Electoral College of the congressional representation, Senate representation, to apply a balance between the major populations and minor populations, respectively. As far as I know, Texas doesn't have an electoral college and elects all positions by popular vote. How would the nation of Texas prevent the state from being run by major populations of Houston, Austin, Dallas, et cetera? Look, that's the status quo. And I've actually talked about this on some previous coffee talks. I think we even maybe hit it last one or the one before. But there has been some discussion about changing that, right? You have, obviously senates are in districts, representatives are in districts, the statewide offices, governor, lieutenant governor, AG, all those, ag commissioner, those are all statewide races. And those are majority rules, right? And there has been some discussion about making constitutional changes to essentially elect. And I hate to call it an electoral college because that's not what it is. It smacks of Me Tooism with the federal constitution. It's not really an electoral college, but what you're essentially talking about, and it's been talked about from a policy perspective, is making sure that the distribution of the votes is not concentrated. The majority of the votes are not concentrated in the 35 counties. I mean, I think when we ran the numbers last time, I haven't run them since the election, but I think prior to maybe it's the primary the last time I ran them, but it's like 78% of voters live in 30 to 32, 35 counties, something like that. And so that leaves a lot of people sitting out on the sidelines, a lot of particularly rural counties. And it gets to that debate about the urban-rural divide here in Texas. So you have questions of representation from a statewide perspective. I will tell you that there are already policy proposals that have been made. I think something similar made it into the Republican Party platform this last go-around, but there have been some legitimate policy positions, and it would not surprise me to see legislation filed. But understand, it will likely be opposed by your statewide office holders, and that includes the governor. I mean, I haven't heard him say that specifically, but I can read tea leaves, right? Anyway, Timothy, thank you for the question. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Michael says, "Are you planning on running for office again next time around?" You have my vote if you decide to run for governor. I mean, look, I'm flattered. I really am. I got asked today if I would run against John Cornyn. Look, I have zero aspirations for political office. The only two times that I ran in my adult life is because I was asked to, right? I was asked to, and I don't know that that is the path forward for me. But I have to say I'm really flattered. I really do appreciate that. It's a hard thing, raising funds. I would honestly just like to pour every ounce of my energy into making the TNM unstoppable, right? That we get this thing all the way to the finish line. We make Texas a self-governing independent nation, and then the TNM can be strong enough to be a watchdog and guard over that newfound independence. That's really my aspiration, not any of this other. But Michael, I really do appreciate it. You guys, man, why you always asking me to run for office? I mean, look, I use this joke. I haven't used this joke since the lieutenant governor's race. Does this look like a runner's body to you? No. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's go here. Okay. I don't know how to answer this one. Corinne says the ledge in Austin has filed, 1,240 bills in the House, 360 in the Senate on day one. I'm guessing this is, are we going to have another meeting for the legislative group? Look, if you're wanting to help work in legislative advocacy, I would encourage you to reach out to our director of governmental affairs, Paul Roby. He's putting together a team. They are working on citizen advocacy and legislative advocacy. We're getting ready to roll out our brand new ledge site. So, I mean, it's that's where you would get involved. I don't know anything specifically about another meeting, but we will be having, as we get clarity on the bills that we will be supporting or our people will be filing. We will definitely be having meetings about that. We won't be keeping any of that a secret, that what we're supporting at all. Okay. I had this question before, but it's been a while. Oren says, would an independent Texas continue to have a two-party political system, Democrat and Republican? Look, I don't know. I can't tell you what Texans are going to do post-Texit, right? I don't lay my wishes, my hopes, wishes, and desires on Texas. I'll be one voice among many. Okay. That being said, you have to look at kind of the way things have gone, and really people's reaction to how entrenched the political parties are in the electoral system. Even the political parties themselves are upset about it, and it's been a while. Understand that we are a political duopoly primarily because of the hurdles that have been placed in the Texas election code for any meaningful additional parties to come out. They naturally have separated into two camps. And as both parties were in charge of making laws, they just entrenched their position and they raised the bar higher and higher and raised the barrier to entry to be almost insurmountable for anybody to come in and basically challenge the duopoly. Now, the unintended consequence of this is that the political parties, especially the ones that nominate by primary, are effectively hybrid organizations, right? So they are private organizations in some respects, and in others, they're treated like an appendage of the government. And there are some really interesting examples of that. But there have been some moves to effectively invoke a right of association by the political parties to operate and function more as private organizations. I agree with that stance. I think that when you have this marriage between the political parties, which are in effect private organizations, and the government, you have what is effectively a government sanctioned duopoly. And so if we're going to say that we're all about the free market and deregulation and things of that nature, deregulating the political parties would be a great start. Get the government out of the political parties. And when you do that, you remove the barriers to entry, right? Because you got to level that playing field, and then let the marketplace of ideas decide who's right and who's wrong, right? And then they will grow. They become organizations just like any others. We examined becoming a political party before we founded the TNM, and we came to the conclusion that the unholy marriage between government and political parties had effectively raised that barrier to entry, and made it difficult. And it's like, do we want to spend our time convincing the people, right, and working with the people directly, or do we want to have to do really stupid organizational things required by the government because you are a political party? Look, there's not a dime's worth of difference between, say, a political party and what the TNM is. You know, we organize in the same way, we talk to people the same way. The difference is we're not seeking to put a TNM next to somebody's name on a ballot, and in doing so, the parties have effectively sold out to a set of rules where the government gets to come in and tell you what you can and cannot do, even if it is the most stupid and inefficient thing possible. If it's the worst possible way to do it, they'll tell you. And look, you know, go back to our petition campaign last year. Texas election code 172.088 requires a political party that nominates by petition, that nominates by primary, to accept a petition from anybody if they hit the threshold to put a question on their ballot. Well, what other private organization would that apply to? I mean, could you by petition go down and force the Red Cross to ask all of its donors or members, or the Lions Club or the Rotarians to do something? You know, hey, we want you to go survey all your members, and here's a petition says that you have to do it, and then the government come in and say no. I mean, it makes no sense. So anyway, Warren, thank you for the question, man. It was a good one. Hadn't had that one in a while. Okay, wow. We are going to have to rapid fire this bad boy because I am running out of time, and I still got coffee too. Okay, here we go. Carino says, how strong is the Chicano Texan support? I would have to imagine they would be down with TEXIT. Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is, you got to understand the TNM and TEXIT support. When you poll it, and we've surveyed our supporters, we got enough people, we can grab a great support, a great sample. But the demographics of TEXIT supporters is more reflective of Texas as a whole than either major political party. And that's kind of a big deal, right? People have a tendency to overlook that because they're out there trying to, pander to this group or pander to that group or whatever. And we just look at it this way. Look, TEXIT is what's good for Texans. And if you're a Texan, you may have a very specific life experience, based on where you live, what your ethnicity is, we're all unique, right? But the thing is that TEXIT has benefits. Independence, Texas being an independent nation, benefits each and every one of us in very individual ways. And so, getting government out of your pocketbook and eliminating regulations and having safe and secure communities, and, there's just so many benefits. It really doesn't matter. So we have the ability, much like you saw Trump's numbers flip down there in the Valley, a lot of the reason that those numbers, a lot of those counties flip from blue to red, is because there's an alignment of sort of that Republican message with a lot of the things we've been saying all along. And so, we're not responsible for those flips, but they're catching on to something that we've known for a long time, and that's been at the core of who we are as an organization, right? Taking that idea, that concept of independence, not just as Texas independence, but down to the individual level, down to your neighborhood, down to your family, and eventually down to yourself. So, it's important, and you're right. They are definitely down with it. Thanks for the question. Okay. Daryl says, I was born and raised in Texas, but at the present time, I live out of state. If the state of Texas decides to secede from the United States, am I guaranteed that I could come? Look, I don't know what Texas is going to set for its citizenship requirements. My advice to you, if you were born and raised in Texas, I'm sure that's probably going to qualify you for citizenship. I can't guarantee it. My advice to you is like the advice I give to everybody else. Look, get here, get in before you need a visa to get in, right? But I would suspect that's what Texas would do with its citizenship. But Daryl, thank you for that. Come home soon. Okay. Okay. All right. I've got time. Okay. I got time for one more. It's got to be a quick one. Will TNM stress the long-term effects of being conjoined to the U.S.? This shouldn't be an issue of the more anti-Texan party is in charge for 4 years. I am not entirely sure what that means, but yes, will we stress the long-term effects of being conjoined to the U.S.? Yeah, that's kind of the core of our messaging. It's what we talk about all the time. There are massive negative effects, and I hit one of them earlier when the overpayment, the overregulation, all those things. I talked about that to that group of high school seniors today. You should have seen their mouths hold open when I told them that that Social Security, I asked, please hold up your hand if you already have a job. And some hands went up, and I said, okay. So I said, they come scoop out your income tax. I said, and then they have that line where there's Social Security, and they scoop that out and understand that it's projected to be insolvent before you ever reach your 30s. Right. So, congratulations. You're paying in a system that you'll never get to use, but there's more than that, and we do talk about that. So I'm not entirely sure what that was about, but hey, you got it right. Okay, friends, that is a wrap. We have been together for about an hour, and I really do appreciate the questions that have come in, guys. Thank y'all so much for doing this. I got one of the things I heard from somebody today. By the way, I have to say, I ran into, I don't know if you guys remember Mark Myers or not. 2 years ago, we were on the campaign trail together. Mark was the county judge in Lavaca County. He is no longer the judge in Lavaca County, but he was out there today, and it was it was so good to see him and talk to him. I have it on good authority that he watches the live stream. So hi, Mark. And, by the way, those of you that are sending me messages saying that you want to see this return to a weekly show, I appreciate that. Maybe I will consider it if I see more of them and I see more of you over there becoming donors or members of the TNM. So here's an announcement that I'm going to share with you. We haven't even sent this out via email yet, but some of you have found this out. We were able to check something off the list that we've been had a little technical issue with this that we were not able to do for about a year. It's been on the list. And that is, many of you were, and it's been this way forever. You said, wait a minute, look, I make a donation to the TNM, but that doesn't qualify for membership. And basically the thing is the two systems didn't talk to each other. And so the development team actually got that across the finish line a week ago this past Monday. And we ran it for a full week of testing. And so I can announce to you tonight that if you go right now to donate.tnm.me, hang on. I think I have a slide for that. I do. Look at that. If you go to donate.tnm.me, you actually get membership credit for your donations. So if you don't already have a membership and you make a contribution that's enough to actually that would get you a membership, the system will automatically go ahead and give it to you, and any overage will be automatically applied into your membership credit, and that's where it'll come from. So look, I would encourage you right now. We have a campaign that's going on right now because we've got a lot of legislative work to do. The deadline was pre-filing, which was yesterday. We did not hit the goal for the deadline. And I got to tell you, it's something that I always hate not hitting a goal. And I would suspect that you should probably hate it too, especially when this is indeed the need for what we're doing is more urgent than it's ever been. So head over there to donate.tnm.me right now, and you donate, you get membership credit, man. It's cool. Okay, a reminder, if you are joining us for the first time tonight, and this is your first exposure to the TNM, and you are ready to pledge your support, head over to tnm.me/vote. Pledge your support right now. And look, while you're there and you pledge your vote, go ahead and become a member. Look, it's your memberships that help keep the organization going, right? That supports the infrastructure, all the stuff that we do, things like Late Night Coffee Talk, the Texas News Podcast, the news site, which I hope you guys are really enjoying, news.tnm.me, being chock full of content. And when you register your support, so become a member, but when you register your support, one of the things we give you right out of the gate is you get access to TNM Social, right? Which is our internal organizing tool, right? It's essentially a social network for people just like you that support a free, self-governing, independent nation of Texas. Look, along with that, if you have not already, please download the TNM mobile app. Go to tnm.me/app and download the app today. It's available on Apple and in the Google Play Store, right? So you got an iPhone or an Android, you can get it. And that's how you're going to stay connected to TNM Social, but you do have to be a registered supporter to be able to use it. And I am also here to announce that we are just a day perhaps away from launching the TNM Business Directory. Many of you have gone over there and registered your businesses already. But if you take a little look over there, you're going to get a sneak peek exclusive for you guys that are watching a Late Night Coffee Talk. Head over to business.tnm.me. I believe that we should be doing business with one another. If you want to be economically independent, then let's start by being economically independent within the TNM, and let's start doing business with one another. I like to support the people that support the same things that I support, and we do that by patronizing one another and their businesses. So be sure to go check that out. Okay, my friends, that is going to be a wrap for tonight. I got to tell you, I really enjoyed tonight. You guys had some really thoughtful, insightful questions, and I got an opportunity to knock a bunch of them down with one swing of the old Negan bat. So thank you for those. And look, we'll get those follow-ups done that we promised, particularly about the Texas Stock Exchange. We'll get those posted to news.tnm.me. In the meantime, look, thank you again. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you find this. Share it with your friends. Do all the things because it helps us reach people. Look, every action you take to share the word is money we don't have to spend to get the word out. Okay, so the more you talk and share and do all those kinds of things, the less I have to get on here and ask for money. So, and I would honestly really appreciate that because I hate doing it. All right. So I will leave you tonight with the words I leave you with every single time we're together. They're not my words, they're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now, and the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.